Okay, so now we are going to talk a little bit about how student-led conferences benefit students. So, according to research, benefits for students include students are able to take ownership of their learning. So, by the student completely leading the conference, they are able to take ownership of what they have achieved, the things that they have learned, and that can be very beneficial for them. Students can gain conversation and public speaking skills. So, like I said before, most of these children actually have probably not had very much experience public speaking. So, even if it is just to their parents, student-led conferences are going to give them some of those public speaking skills and conversation skills that they will use for the rest of their life. So as they get older, those skills will be very beneficial to them. So student-led conferences are a great way for students to gain conversation and public speaking skills. Students can express themselves. They can self-assess, so they can know how they have done in school. By keeping a digital portfolio, they are able to look at that and tell what they've improved on, the things that they maybe need to improve on. They can set goals, they can see if they've met those goals. So digital portfolios and student-led conferences are a great way for students to self-assess and know how they're doing in school. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about benefits that student-led conferences with digital portfolios have on parents. So, of course, during a student-led conference, the student is leading. So the parents are able to hear their child talk about the progress that they have made. Not just the teacher, but the child. So when they hear their child bragging or talking about how great they are doing and they are displaying these skills that they have for their parents, it can make parents very proud. Parents and students are able to engage in open and honest dialogue. So like I mentioned before, student-led conferences are a great way for conversations to begin being had at home. So like I said, sometimes parents will ask what the student has learned at school, and the student will say, I don't know, or nothing. So student-led conferences are a great way for parents to begin engaging in open and honest dialogue about their education and about goals and achievements that they have. Student-led, and that also says student-led conferences can help bring up conversations about school at home. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the pros and cons. So some pros of student-led conferences are that parent participation can increase. So sometimes parent-teacher conferences, parents don't necessarily want to take time out of their day or can't take time out of their day to attend these parent-teacher conferences. But when their child is presenting to them and telling about their accomplishments, studies have shown that parent participation will increase. So that's a pro. Once again, students can gain experience speaking in front of an audience, and those are skills that they will use for the rest of their life. So those can be very beneficial to them. And then students are able to self-assess, so they can see how they're doing and see what improvements need to be made, and they can be proud of themselves for things that they have improved on, and they can set new goals and talk about the goals that they have met. So all three of those are definitely pros of student-led conferences. Some of the cons may be that students struggle with speaking in front of an audience. Maybe you have a really shy student who, even though it is their parent that they are presenting to, they're still nervous and they don't really want to open up. So a great way to fix that would be providing a script for the student and also allowing them to practice in class using the fishbowl method. That's a great way for students to get used to speaking in front of an audience and see what comes with a student-led conference before the conference begins. Another con would be parents or teachers may need to discuss things that they don't want the student to hear. So, of course, that could be fixed. Parents can choose to schedule a meeting time at a later date or a later time, or the student could be dismissed and parents and teachers can stay and discuss things that they need to discuss that they may not want the student to hear. Okay, so now let's talk about ending a student-led conference. So, like I said before, one way you could end a student-led conference would be dismissing the student, but before you do that, you could have your students set goals along with their parents so that the parents are there whenever they set the goals, the parents are aware of the goals, and they can assist them in meeting their goals. So a great way to do that would be providing students with something like this. So this is just a handout that I made that students could fill out with their parents and to set goals for the next semester or before the next student-led conference. So they could tell their favorite part of whatever grade they're in. They could talk about what 3 things that they are really good at in class, and then they could set 3 goals for, this says the rest of the year, but it could be for the next 3 months or until the next student conference. Whatever you choose, that would totally be your preference. And then you could leave a place for the student to tell how their parents could help them to meet their goals. So this is a great way to get the parent involved and also to help your students set a goal for before the next student-led conference. Okay, so then building off of how you would end a student-led conference, students would be dismissed at the end of the conference so that the parents and teachers have time to discuss things that they want to discuss privately, or parents could choose a separate meeting time to talk about things that you maybe didn't want to talk about in front of the parents. Okay, so if I was presenting this in person, I would have my participants get into groups of 2 or 3, and they could have their own student-led conference, or they could fill out the goals sheet that I had made. So, of course, this would be a group of teachers, so they could say their favorite part of teaching, whatever grade they teach is, and then talk about 3 things that they are really good at in the classroom. And then they could set goals for themselves. So, of course, these goals could be goals for the rest of the year, or they could be goals regarding digital portfolios and student-led conferences, even if the goal is just to learn a little bit more about digital portfolios, or try implementing a student-led conference in their own classroom. This could be goals, whatever goals that they choose. And then whoever they were having their student-led conference with they could write maybe how they could help them reach their goal, or how they could push them to reach their goal, encourage them. So I would also hand out a handout. This is a handout I created that tells a little bit about student-led conferences with digital portfolios. So, of course, there is a brief description of what student-led conferences are, and then 5 resources. So, some of these resources are about student-led conferences. Some of them are digital portfolio apps. So, this first one is Sesame, which is the app that I mentioned before. The teacher can organize the students' work into personal digital portfolios. And then there is the Seesaw app, which is very similar to Sesame. It's available for both Apple and Android products. So you could download that onto an iPad or any tablet. It's a digital journal, so the students can post their work by taking pictures or videos of their thought processes or assignments that you give, or anything like that. And then the teachers can share their portfolios with the parents. They can post a classroom blog. So there are many options, many different ways you could choose to share things on both the Sesame and Seesaw app. The third QR code, it will take you to 12 great apps that you can use for digital portfolios in your classroom, not just Sesame and Seesaw. And then the fourth one is a link to an article talking about the benefits of student-led conferences. And then the last one is some tips to make excellent digital portfolios for your students in your classroom. Yeah, so I think that student-led conferences are great, and they have the power to change the way parents and students look at learning. So I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation, and I hope that you have learned a little bit about student-led conferences using digital portfolios, and I hope that maybe one day you want to implement them into your own classroom. Thanks for watching.